It only took 7 minutes. And in that time, 9 pieces of jewelry from the Napoleonic era mostly were stolen from the Musée du Louvre. And it is just a sad, horrific outcome. And the question really becomes what will happen to these pieces? Will the police catch the perpetrators in time? Will they preserve these glorious pieces of jewelry and French craftsmanship? Or will they be destroyed and melted down and lose their value to fill the coffers of criminals? It is a horrible day for the French and I think French culture overall. So we are going to get into all the details of the recent robbery of the Louvre because this is royal fashion news and we have a passion for royal fashion here, but also jewelry because one of my favorite quotes of all time is,
"We don't count the carats, we count the centuries."
and Queen Margrethe of Denmark there is so incredibly correct because the big thing is, yes, the pieces of jewelry that were stolen from the Louvre are very impressive, but at the same time, we need to focus not on the carats they represent, but on the centuries because it's about the history that matters, not really the values of the gemstones themselves, or at least that's how I choose to look at it. But so much to get into on this case. So here is sort of the breakdown of how the robbery occurred. And I do have to say, I think the Musée du Louvre was complete and utterly incompetent when it came to securing this area. They were complacent, they didn't really think, and of course, criminals took advantage of that. So, this particular room, which is called the Apollo Room and called Apollo Gallery, is on the Seine side of the museum. So there is a sort of street side on one side and the Seine on the other. So the Seine is the river, and the Musée du Louvre. To be clear here, when it comes to this case is massive. It is hard to sort of underestimate until you've been there how huge this building is. It's huge. It's gigantic. So to secure a building like this, number one, is very, very challenging because of the sheer scale of it. And then you have tens of thousands, if not maybe even 100,000 people moving through that building in a day. It's probably more like tens of thousands. But a lot of people there, I was there in 2023, and it was sort of frustrating because it's packed. It's unbelievably packed in there. And it's hard to move around. Sometimes it's a bit confusing. And going to the Apollo Gallery, though, is something I really wanted to go to because I had never seen it. And I am so grateful that I did, guys, because I looked back through my pictures and I do have a picture, and most of them are actually very good, which I'm so grateful for, of every single piece of jewelry that was stolen. Now, there was one piece in this instance that did fall out of the criminals' hands before they left, but to go over again how this occurred. So the Musée du Louvre is huge. It opens about 9:30. And so the criminals got into this gallery at 9:30 abouts. And what they did is they utilized, I guess, a construction area, and I think either stole or already had planned a cherry picker that went up to the window to this gallery. And again, huge questions to the Louvre here what they were trying to do. Now, obviously, it's a historic building. That's part of the problem, but there were no strong panes of glass or anything, so they just smashed that thing as if it was nothing. They went into the gallery and they had angle grinders, which are basically sort of mini saws, and they sawed into the displays, grabbed the jewelry that they could, and ran down. So there were 9 pieces overall, 8 that made it into the criminals' hands because one obviously dropped in the escape. Now, the Louvre says, or at least the cultural ministry says, that the security at the Louvre acted quickly and did prevent a further loss of pieces, and that their quick reaction did result in the criminals making mistakes. Now, there are obviously some comments on how that's not true because there are videos, like somebody did get a video of the guys actually breaking in, and the security at the Louvre is trained just to move people out of the way and keep the patrons safe rather than the pieces. And so my big complaint there, number one, guys, is that if you are particularly guarding high risk things like jewelry, yes, 99.999% of the time, you just need to be there to protect the people from themselves, basically. But they should have had officers who were also trained to physically intervene in those very, very small moments where you do need something like that, particularly in a what I would argue is a high risk location like the Apollo Gallery, because the jewelry is expensive, that will attract a criminal element. And of course, we also have the Dresden Green Vault break in back in 2019 in November. That these were 6 years and a month apart, I find is very, very telling. So, incredibly important here that they may have helped some, but still not enough. And so these pieces were stolen. And it's horrible. It's terrible. It's sad. It's tragic. And there has been a lot of reactions to this, and a lot of them so very incredibly hurt. And a lot of people who are French, who have connections to the monarchies and various things, are reflecting on these horrible, horrible losses. So let's go ahead and get into what was actually stolen. And again, I'll share with you actually both video and pictures. And I do have a Substack where I share the pictures that I have. So if you would like to see them yourself, they do have little watermarks on them because obviously my pictures are actually better than some of the ones I've seen in the news, to be quite honest. So I have a really, really nice camera that I used to actually go to the Louvre and get these pictures. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. I would have liked more opportunity to get even better pictures and videos and these sorts of things because I don't think my video quality is all that good because I was using my older camera phone and it just didn't do things quite as well. But the first thing we have, and this is a list from the Ministry of Culture, is the tiara from the paré of Queen Marie Amélie and Queen Hortense. So we have this sapphire tiara that belonged to the wife of King Louis Philippe. And it remained within the family of Maria Amélie until it was sold by her descendant Henri to the Louvre in 1985. And he was the Count of Paris, so he's sort of the pretender to the French throne. In addition to not only the tiara, but the necklace and earrings as well were stolen. And Henri has passed away, but his son Jean shared his thoughts on the theft. He said, "It was with immense sadness that I learned of the theft of historic jewels from the Louvre Museum, including Queen Marie Amélie's tiara and sapphire set, which also belonged to my grandmother. These jewels are not just family heirlooms. They are a living part of our national history, a testament to our country's elegance and craftsmanship. Their disappearance touches me deeply and represents, I believe, a deep wound for the French people. I wish to express my support for the authorities and the Louvre Museum teams working to recover them. I call on everyone to recognize how vital it is to protect these precious witnesses to our history, which connect us to what is noble and timeless in France. Protecting our heritage means honoring our shared memory and serving our country." So I thought those were very, very beautiful words. And very sad to think as well that it's like these belong to his grandmother, they belong to his great, 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 great grandmother, and to lose them in a place where they were supposed to be safe. They were supposed to be safe in the Louvre. And that the Louvre did not do enough to protect its heritage here, especially after we had the Dresden Green Vault. There have been more robberies at museums to try to go after jewelry like this. Obviously, the question becomes, why didn't the Louvre do more? Why weren't the cases massively secure? And I'm curious as well, were these pieces like, did they go into a vault at night? Like, how were they even secured at night? Because I think the idea was, which is very stupid, is like, well, it's on the second floor. Nobody can get up there. Well, you get a cherry picker, it dries up, and bada bing, bada boom. In 7 minutes, you're robbed in the daytime. This was a brazen daytime robbery. So the losses of these pieces, you can actually even see it here in a painting, I believe, of Queen Marie Amélie. You can actually see the pieces of this set there, the necklace in particular. And so to lose this is just horrific. We also have a necklace from Marie Louise's Paré. And so this is an emerald necklace, and then the earrings from it as well. So this was given to Empress Marie Louise by her husband, Emperor Napoleon, as a wedding present in 1810. The set changed hands and was eventually acquired by the Louvre in 2004 from a member of the Rothschild family. So just horrific that this piece is lost. And of course, as well, if you're not familiar with gemstones, emeralds are a very soft stone. So these stones could actually be quite damaged in this whole theft. Like the ones that could probably be the most damaged would be the emeralds here. They are the softest of the stones. And then next we have, which I think is probably the greatest loss in some ways from a historical perspective, because this was the only piece that was not part of the Napoleonic court. This was actually belonged in part, some of the stones, to Louis the 14th. So this was the Reliquary Brooch. And according to A History of the Crown Jewels of Europe, the two light pink diamonds started out as buttons belonging to Louis the 14th and weighed around 21 carats. The current iteration was created during the time of Louis XV and reportedly contained the first diamonds cut in France in the 15th century, with the official date of creation as 1698. The set contains 93 diamonds weighing roughly 144 carats. So I think that's accurate. Obviously, this book is from the 1960s, so in some ways I'm a little bit curious, but that is what it reports for this particular, the Reliquary Brooch. The next piece is Empress Eugénie's pearl and diamond tiara. So it was made by the House of Bapst, which was the court jeweler established there during the reign of one of the Napoleons. And it consists of 274 pearls and 2 carats of rose-cut diamonds. It was sold to M. Julius Jacobi in the Great French Crown Jewel Sale of 1887. And the tiara was later acquired by the German noble family Thurn and Taxis before being sold to the Louvre in 1992. And the idea here was, because this originally belonged to France, what the Louvre was trying to do was acquire some of the old imperial pieces. But now the question becomes, will anybody else want to give their imperial pieces, donate them, or sell them to the museum? Because the museum has proven it can't secure them. The other one, and one of the more impressive pieces, is a large bow brooch from Empress Eugénie's bodice. It is made up of 2,438 brilliant diamonds weighing roughly 137 carats. It was made by the House of Cramer for the reign of Napoleon III. The piece was reportedly inspired by Marie Antoinette. And you can see here how gorgeous and stunning this is. And the other piece that didn't quite make it, although it's quite insane because it's a very impressive piece, and so that they didn't get this, I think, is quite great. Although it doesn't have, let's say, as much historical value as the Reliquary Brooch. Says it was created for Napoleon III's wife by the House of Bapst, who happened to be the newly appointed court jeweler at the time. It is made up of gold, diamonds, and emeralds. It was mainly designed for the World's Fair in 1855. So it was never, I don't think, officially worn. And so these are the pieces that have been lost. And if you're not aware, they can't be sold this way. So the terrible reality here is that in order to make a profit off this robbery, you must break the pieces down. You have to recut them because they're too big to sell as is. And the stupid, absurd thing is that in order to do this, half the value of the pieces come from their historic connections. Yes, the emeralds are impressive on their own, but it adds probably another 0 to the value of the set because they belong to Napoleon's wife. And so to destroy that historical connection means that at the end of the day, you actually make less money. So it's just unbelievably stupid in some ways that people even do this, because you're destroying what makes these pieces valuable. You can't sell them as is, which is why they're so pricey in the first place. And yes, all those diamonds, all those sapphires, all those emeralds have a lot of worth. But guess what they have to do? They have to break them up and make them smaller to sell them on the black market. That's the only way to do it, is to destroy them. And I think that's horrific in so many ways. Now, they did manage to, when it came to the Dresden Green Vault situation, manage to actually acquire most everything intact at the end of the day, because it must be hard there. You have these very expensive gemstones, and then you have to break them up and make them even smaller. And when it comes to, let's say, some of these pieces like emeralds, they are very, very soft stones. And so you might actually fully destroy it and not be able to sell any of it. It's just absolutely insane. It's unfathomable. And we do have comments as well from one of the descendants of Napoleon in this situation. And what he says, I think, really does highlight why these are so important to, I think, the French in general, why they should be. He says these jewels created by the greatest goldsmiths in our history embody the French genius, its taste for beauty, its demand for the sublime. In stealing them, it is not only precious stones that are torn from a museum case, it's part of our national soul being stripped. This hateful theft does not harm a family, an institution, or an era. It wounds all French people because this heritage is our common good, that which generations of artisans, artists, and sovereigns have shaped for the glory and memory of the nation. And sadly, that has been stripped. But it is a great reminder because I'm thinking to myself, we have Rosenborg Castle in Denmark, which displays the Danish crown jewels. We have the Edwardian era display in the UK. And, thinking about the glass, I'm sharing pictures here. Like, how thick is that glass? Are the people there? And yes, it would be harder to access and go in and out of. But if the people there are not trained to respond quickly to an incident, if they cannot physically protect the items. Now, I would have been in there, guys, physically trying to protect those items. I can almost guarantee you I would have been like, no, the history, stop it. If the security is not trained to do that, then what is their purpose? Because there should be a different view of how you protect particular things. And we've seen pieces of art be damaged, cultural history being damaged because of protests. All those stop oil morons. And I call them morons because that's what they are. It's like, well, if I super glue myself to a piece of art, you're going to stop drilling for oil. Like, what lunacy is that? That doesn't even make any sense. People are dumb. But there are people who will do it because they don't have an appreciation for history. And I think this is one of, let's say, a greater discussion, which is the fall of the West in some ways, the fall of the appreciation of Western culture and heritage. Because some people have come to hate their own culture and heritage because of colonialism or what have you, even though every stinking culture on earth did similar things to the Europeans in one way or another. The Europeans just happened to be more efficient at it, more powerful at it because they had developed faster than so many others. But everything the Europeans have done that people criticize them for, colonialization, conquest, these sorts of things, have been done by every stinking culture on earth in big and small ways. Europe is not removed from the rest of the sins of humanity. Europe is not worse than the rest of humanity. We all carry the same sins, basically. And when you, I think, devalue the cultural history and heritage of a country, it makes it easy to destroy the relics of it. And I find that to be tremendously, tremendously sad. It's something that I mourn quite a bit. And I'm so lucky I was able to see those pieces, but I just thought I could go and see them again. I was going to go to France actually in early October. I was going to go to Paris for a day. I wanted to see the Notre Dame, but maybe I would have stopped to the Louvre again. I was in Paris again. I should have gone to the Louvre again. I thought I had more time. And the sad reality is we don't have time, which is why I am so blessed to have something like this. It's not the lens, but this is the camera that got those pictures. And I'm so immensely grateful for it. The detail and the sharpness of the image is something that I feel like now is gone. It's gone. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. And I plan to do more picture taking in the future to both share with others and preserve. And though I don't know when this will particularly happen, you might notice that we haven't done really a quote unquote Tiara Tuesday or Thursday really anymore. I haven't called it that. I'll rename the playlist. And there's a particular reason for that. And it's something I have been thinking about, although I haven't had much time to work on. So hopefully maybe before too long, we might be able to get there. And that is I created an account and I have actually all the social media is pretty much secured for it at this point. And it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So if you are interested, and again, I have no idea when you will ever see this. I will be clear right now. I have no idea when you'll ever see any of this, but know it's being worked on. And it's a profile that I really wanted because I have always been so inspired by Queen Marguerite. We don't count the carats, we count the centuries, because that is what is so important about these pieces and why I was so inspired to create these accounts at some point, which will be more focused on not just the jewelry, which is beautiful, but the women who wore it, the times they lived in, how a piece got from point A to point B, what were the tragedies and families and everything surrounding it. And it'll be like, let's say, more of like, still again, really thinking about this, hoping to launch it the next year. It'll be more about having a long form, let's say once a week or once every other week. We'll see what is possible. And it'll be called Counting the Centuries. Because again, guys, we want to count the centuries. Don't buy into all the hype of what the jewelry's worth and everything, because that's not the point. That's what led these horrible criminal people to break into that museum, because they were seeing dollar signs. They weren't seeing the history. They weren't appreciating the craftsmanship. They'll destroy it in order to make a quick buck, much less money than they'll probably think they're making. They're probably thinking they'll make $1 million from the score. They probably won't, to be quite honest. They'll probably make a lot less, even though the whole collection is worth millions. And the reason is simply the history is what makes these pieces infinitely more valuable than anything Bulgari can come up with now, or Cartier, or Harry Winston, or Tiffany. It's the history. We count the history. We count the centuries. We never ever count the carats. And so if you're interested in seeing what happens with that, again, I'm not giving a deliberate timeline because I'm not sure, but it's under Counting the Centuries, the YouTube channel. We have X, we have Instagram, we have Substack, we have so many things. And I'm really hoping that we can delve into more of the history of the women who've worn these jewels, the family relationships, dynamics, so many things, because there's so many beautiful pieces. And as I go through and as I go to more museums, I'm hoping to go up to the Smithsonian sometime this year to get pictures, better pictures of the Hope Diamond, of actually some of the French imperial jewelry that ended up in the National History Museum there in Washington, D.C. I will be getting pictures and videos of that I hope to be able to share with you and go to other museums. There's even some Fabergé tiaras here in the States that are at a museum in Houston. I hope to go down there and see that. I want to be able to share with you guys the centuries, the histories. We can admire the carats and the sparkles. And thankfully, a lot of the Napoleonic jewelry also ended up in Sweden and Denmark, where it is worn and appreciated to this day. And thankfully, most of the time when the jewelry is within the hands of the royal families, it tends to be a bit safer, sadly, than is sitting in a museum. And I also think of Indiana Jones. It belongs in a museum. If it's not being worn, it belongs in a museum. But sadly, some people just don't see it that way and took advantage of a weakness of the Louvre. And the Louvre should hang its head in shame that it allowed this to happen. The person who's head of security should be sacked. And yes, maybe the criminals didn't get the swift escape that they thought they might. Apparently, they tried to set the truck on fire. They dropped a helmet. They dropped the crown. They did make mistakes. So hopefully that increases the likelihood of a quick and easy capture. But it could be years before we ever know the fate of these gems. And we might never, ever know the fate of these gems. And I find that to be just absolutely pitiful and sad that people don't appreciate what our ancestors have given us. But guys, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of this crazy heist at the Louvre. And were you able to see any of these beautiful pieces? Let me know in the comments below, and I shall speak to you again very soon. Bye.
We don't count the carats, we count the centuries.